What is up, Starseeds? It's Sydalexandria, and today we are going to be talking about birth control. So, when I started my YouTube channel, I had this long list. I still do, but it's even longer. And this was one of the subjects that was on the original list. And today, we're finally going to be talking about it. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I turned 21 a couple weeks ago. I don't know, but I'm ready to dive into this, okay? So I have always been interested ever since I got put on birth control when I was like 15 years old, 14, 15. I've been interested in this because I want to know what I'm putting in my body, right? I got put on the birth control pill because I had super painful periods, and currently I have a whole like period menstrual playlist. So check that out because periods should not be painful. If you have a healthy diet, if you have a not super stressful life and cycle and month, then your period is not going to be stressful. We're going to be talking about my experience going on birth control and then getting off of it like a year and a half later, and also just birth control in general, what it is. So, what is birth control? Let's start off by my doctor's example, okay? I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you what my doctor told me, all right? When she told me that I should get on the birth control pill, there's multiple different types of birth control. You can get the depot shot, you can get an IUD, there's lots of different kinds. The birth control pill is a really common kind, especially if you were like 14, 15, like when I got on it. So, anyways, my doctor told me that, I'm going to put you on this pill because you're going to skip your periods. Because when you take the pill, you actually control when you get your menstrual cycle. So basically, there's like 4 lines of pills, 7 pills in each line because you have a month's worth of pills. And then the top 3 rows, the top 3 weeks, they have the active birth control. And then the bottom week, the bottom row, it's a different color pill and it's just sugar. My doctor told me to skip the last week most of the time. So instead of, using the whole pack, I would just go right back to the first week of a new pack after the 3rd week, just so I was taking the birth control pill continuously and not having a period, because that last week, that was your withdrawal bleed. Because when you're on birth control, she told me, you're tricking your body to think that you're pregnant so you don't have a period unless you take just the sugar pill instead of the actual birth control, and then you bleed because you're withdrawing from the medicine, or the poison, as I like to call it, because birth control is an endocrine disruptor. It disrupts your hormones, right? Because it's giving you extra hormones that isn't supposed to really be there, okay? Because the birth control is what's putting it there, all right? It's a hormone that occurs naturally in your body, but they're man-making these hormones, It's not very natural. And so it's an endocrine disruptor, it's a hormone disruptor, and it's a pheromone disruptor. So when you're attracting mates, you do this completely unconsciously. Your body produces hormones inside your body, but you also let off this like barely smellable scent, okay? Sure, you let off a scent that people can smell as well, but these pheromones, it's like an undertone in your scent that's full of hormones that travels and gets into people. And they're like, ooh, she smells good. She's a good genetic match for me. I should have babies with her. Or, I don't really like that stench. Like, unconsciously, our genetics aren't a good pair. Probably not a good potential mate to make babies with, okay? Because this is about reproduction. Pheromones. It's attracting a good mate, attracting a genetically, perfect pair, hopefully. But we're using perfume, we're using birth control, it's throwing the shit off. But so when you are on birth control, you can't sniff out a good partner. Sure, it's probably throwing your pheromones off because you're the one taking it, but it's throwing off your ability to smell others correctly. My personal experience when I took birth control, my doctor told me to only have like 3 periods a year. So I mean, at the time I thought that was pretty cool, but in the long run, that threw my body so far out of whack. Like I lost that connection with knowing my body, which is really deep and really like kind of traumatic almost for me because I'm someone that's really in touch with my own body. I know when something's off with my body. So the fact that I was on birth control for a year and a half, like I lost touch with my body. And it took me a while to like understand my menstrual cycle because of that. Like I was finally starting to really understand it. I was having pain all the time. It wasn't just when I was bleeding. It wasn't when I was PMSing and bleeding. Like it was all the time. It was when I was ovulating, PMSing, and bleeding. I was having one good week out of the month, and it was just really difficult. So that's why I got on. I think it did help my acne a little bit. That's another reason why people can get on birth control. It's not just for like birth control, it's for pain during your menstrual cycle, not just when you're bleeding, but during any time of your menstrual cycle. It's for acne. There's lots of reasons the doctors will put girls on birth control, and I see why they do it. And I understand that it does good because the power to control when we have babies is such, a powerful thing. It's an important thing. Obviously, there is pros to birth control. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But we can't deny that it's really affecting us in a negative way as well. When I got put on birth control, I was already in a serious relationship. I had been dating a guy for, I believe, over 2 years at the time. And even though I was super young, like that was a long relationship for being so young in middle school and high school. And I noticed after, like looking back now, I noticed that after I got put on birth control, I started, finding other types of guys attractive. And I'm someone who doesn't really have a type, but when I got put on birth control, I had a bad type. Like I started liking bad boys way more than I did before. I started liking like gangster boys. And I'm like, looking back now, I'm like, what the heck was that birth control doing to me, And then when I was 16 and I went through a spiritual awakening, I was like, F this birth control. I don't need it. Like, I wanted to get back in touch with my body and understand my menstrual cycle. So I'm really glad I did that. We also have to address the fact that some people will literally just flush whole birth control pills down the toilet sometimes. Or if you're taking birth control and you're peeing in the toilet, that birth control is actually going in the sewer system and then in our water. Sure, the water gets filtered or whatever, but the birth control actually doesn't get filtered through that much. So guys are literally drinking estrogen. Guys are drinking female hormones. Guys are drinking birth control. And I think that has something to do with why sperm counts are going down. Sure, the shit in our food, the GMOs, the food dye, all of that, the processed food is not helping. It's making it a lot worse, but so is the birth control. I think the food is a way bigger issue, in the water and affecting, sperm count and sperm quality. Guys are drinking birth control and the sperm is suffering. If you know me, you know I'm into aliens. We do not want to turn into another race that can no longer genetically reproduce, okay? We gotta watch ourselves. We gotta slow this process of, turn into the grays down. We gotta check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. Really think about what you're putting into your body. The choice is yours. But do your research because no one else is gonna do it for you. The doctors are not gonna do it for you. If you go to a Western doctor, they're going to give you the Western medicine, way of putting it. And it's not their fault, it's the school's fault. And it's not the school's fault, it's the government's fault. I'm going to stop talking now before I get into even more of a rant, but that's what I wanted to say about birth control. My experience was it threw my pheromones way out of whack. It made me want guys that were not a good option for me. So just keep that in mind if, if you're thinking about birth control, or just keep that in mind to add to your library of facts up in there. Peace out, y'all.